Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Motorsport Experience podcast. This is another episode, and we're here today with Jessica. And Jessica will introduce yourself and let us know how you came about the motorsport world and what is your specific focal point in there. And then we'll go from there. And we also going to look at some flow aspects in motorsport and anything else that comes up and to our conversation. So Jessica, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, hi, I'm Jessica Rainville, and I was born and raised in a small town in Northern Ontario, which I still live here. Population 1,000. I don't really say where I am, but general idea, Northern Ontario. I grew up on snowmobiles mostly. I've never been on a dirt bike before now. So I've pretty much been on snowmobiles since 8 years old. So that was like my main, motorsports. Was on quads too. But how I got into dirt bikes mostly was, I'm trying to think, 2018. Well, actually, we'll go back to my high school. So when I was about 17 years old, I almost bought my first dirt bike, which was an RM80, a little motocross bike. And I I contemplated dirt bike or clothes. It was like my first paycheck, dirt bike or clothes. I should have went with the dirt bike, but I ended up not getting it. But I'm kind of glad because my fiance now, he's been riding since he was, oh gosh, very young. He's older than me. So he was into motocross and dirt bikes for a long time. So in 2018, he got his YZ 250 and he was going to start the motocross track back in our hometown. And it ended up like flopping. So he's like, what am I going to do with my dirt bike? He turned his dirt bike, his motocross bike, into an enduro bike. And there's me like, oh, I want a dirt bike. I want a dirt bike. So then that year, I'm not sure if you know who Cassie Boone is. She's one of Canada's, I think she's the only female freestyle motocross rider where they do the jumps and they flip. She came to our hometown and I saw Cassie Boone and I said, that's it. I'm getting a dirt bike. So that was 2018. 2019 came around and I got my first bike and I was 30 years old. So I got a 2003 XR 100 and I was like over the moon. My mom was sitting here when Ernie pulled in with my dirt bike and I couldn't wait. So every day after work, I would go and ride and ride and ride. And it honestly, like, it's cliche as it sounds, it like pretty much saved my life in a way because I suffer from anxiety. And not long after I got my bike, I found out my dog had cancer. And so that took it all away. Like when I was on my bike, I didn't think about what was going on. So I rode all of 2020. I was only 4 months on the bike and I started ice riding. So we studded my tires. I didn't want to put my bike away. So we studded my tires and my husband's like, you can still ride on the ice. I said, I can. And I rode all winter. So that was 2020. And then, so 2020, after 2020, September 2020 is when I got my second dirt bike, which was my KX 100. My two-stroke, it's a little motocross bike and we turned it into an enduro bike so I can ride it a lot slower in the bush. And that was, that was one of my highlights. But I should have first, March 4th of 2020, after I've been riding my bike for, a few months, my mom ended up passing away. She was like my number one fan when it came to dirt bikes. And that was let me see, I'm trying to think. I don't even know how many months, but a few months anyways. And I didn't want to get on my bike after she passed away. The anxiety was so bad. I'm trying to explain how I would explain to everybody else. The panic attack started. I couldn't even walk from the couch to the door and my heart was just pounding and pounding. And I thought something was wrong with me. So I'd go to the hospital and I'd go get checked out and the doctor's like, no, you're fine. It's just anxiety. So after she passed and then COVID hit and learning to live with this, newfound thing, like these sensations that I didn't have before. Yeah. So riding my dirt bike helped with that too. So then September 2020, I got my new bike, which definitely helped, everything along and my anxiety and all that stuff. And it was absolutely amazing. So my husband and my dad bought me that dirt bike for my birthday. They split it half and half and they surprised me with a brand new brand new to me dirt bike. And I was so excited. And once again, fall, winter, we rode all winter that winter. And then 2020, so 2022. I'm just trying to think because it's been like I'm 3 years in and my fourth winter season now. So 2022 was probably the biggest highlight because I did my first race at RJ's, my first cross country race, and that was that was like, oh my gosh, I probably up 3 weeks up until then I couldn't sleep at night. I was so nervous, and I ended up ninth out of 12 ladies. I was about fourth or fifth, and I stopped to help one of the girls, and oh my gosh, she was so stuck, so I stopped and I helped her get out. She ended up placing third, and I got ninth. Yeah, I got ninth, and I crashed about 10 times. I'm embarrassed to say, but the adrenaline was so bad that I didn't even know I bent my handlebars. I broke my number plate on the side, and I broke I'm not sure what it's called, but the metal cap on your boot, it was completely off. That's how hard I crashed. But after that experience, like after all the craziness and everything, that's probably my biggest highlight of my dirt bike riding was the race this year. And I should have said last year in 2021 is being a Royal Distributing Ambassador. That was probably my biggest highlight. Sorry. I'm
Wow,
talking
no,
on and on. Big
that's
story.
amazing. No, it's
Yeah.
great. It's awesome. I love that story because it exhibits how important the motorsports are for many of us. It's
Yeah.
not just some surface level hobby. It goes deep into our soul. It goes
Yeah.
deep into our essence. And I totally understand what you're saying of riding helping with anxiety because
Oh,
I had my first bike in 2009, about Yamaha 600, and I was riding. That was the first time I've ever rode anything. And
Yeah.
at that time, my job wasn't going so well, my relationships weren't going so well, and the bike was the only fine outlet for anything that wasn't going right. Like the moment I put the helmet on and turned on the ignition, everything just went right. It was amazing. It was like the solution for every problem. So,
Yes.
in that sense, there is so much present in being one with the machine, being one on the bike, street bike, or a trail riding. It's all kind of different variations of the same thing. And when I speak to people about this sport, it very quickly becomes noticeable how important it is, how much involvement there is, and how much of our soul is in that sport. And so
Absolutely.
it's clearly visible in your story and you're more from snowmobiles to bikes to then snow-studded tires. It's incredible. And so you've did the couple of races. What was the most memorable thing about the most recent race, like overall?
Oh gosh. Probably when one of the young girls came up to me afterwards, and she, like in front of everybody, I was waiting for my fiance to go, like women's novices in the morning, and then the older guys are in the afternoon. And so I was waiting for his race, and she came up to me around like a crowd of people that I knew. And she came up to me and she just said, Jessica, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have played. She said, and like I I think because her dad had sponsored her, like she had a big kind of maybe team behind her, and she's like, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have finished that race, and that made my day. And like, she's like, nobody else would have did that for me, and that was amazing because I didn't go there to win. I just went there for an experience and to have fun. Like I knew darn well, like I'm like, okay, I'm not going there to place. Just I haven't been around people in 2 years. Like I'm very nervous of COVID, and so this is like you see 200 people walking around, and it's like, oh my gosh. So I said, just go, have fun, and if you place, place. If you don't, it's fine. So that was probably the most memorable thing was and finishing and too, but mostly when the young girl came up to me and said that she was very thankful.
Yeah, and I hear that all the time. The community aspect of motorsports is also so prominent that
Yeah,
people don't just go for riding. People want to go and connect with other like-minded individuals who understand them. And one of the things I always notice when I go to the track, the moment you go through the gate, you know exactly what's going on. You know exactly what everyone's role is. There's clarity, and the focus arrives out of that clarity, and the connections become very much um, they're much deeper and faster established because everybody's there for the exactly same reason, for
Yeah.
exactly same person. They're all passionate about the same thing. And the conversations turn from small talk to talk about passionate things. And that brings everybody up. And when
Yeah.
people leave, it's the most memorable thing. So it's incredible how much community aspect plays a role in motorsports.
Yeah.
And so if we were to look at the actual let's look at flow state and the mental state because I
Oh
love
boy.
diving I love
Hey, oh
diving into
boy.
this aspect. And so what is your perception of flow state? What does flow state mean for you essentially?
To me, flow state means like you're just nothing else matters. You're in the zone. You're riding and nothing, I mean, things can go wrong, but nothing else matters. If you fall, you fall. If you're not worrying about what bill you have to pay, or what happened yesterday with a friend, or you know to me, that's what I feel flow state. um when you feel one with the bike, there's many times that I don't feel that way, like when my anxiety and I'm too in my head and I'm worrying about that next tree or whatever. Yeah, that's definitely not flow state to me.
Yeah, exactly. You hit it right on the nail that everything else kind of stops being a problem. Because what I have noticed is when we are in our mental space, when we're thinking and analyzing and logically trying to solve problems, we're in our head, like we are in a regular reality type of environment. That creates constriction and it doesn't actually solve any problems. You can be in your mind circling around the same thing over and over and over. And that's when you get on the bike and there's the full immersion bodily experience when you get feedback from the handlebars and you get the feedback from the vibrations and you actually get into the body. That's when the inner critic kind of gets quieter. And that's a key element of flow state, is that it gets a little quieter in the mind so that we can hear our body, we can hear the connection to other elements. And so for me, that is the most interesting aspect of motorsport and the flow state itself. And I love talking about it. And what it makes me wonder is how different people approach it and if there is any correlation between experience in the sport and also taking it back to their regular life. Have you noticed any ways that you can bring it back to your normal daily activities?
Sometimes. Sometimes well, mostly when I know I'm going to be riding, you can tell, like the days you're going to be riding, that's when I'm more like, you know, zen and in the zone. But um, just trying to think. I notice like after riding, I do feel like, I don't know if it's just like kind of like exercising, you just that feel good. So I noticed that lasts a lot longer after the bike, even with mountain biking. I recently got a new fat bike, and that's what we're doing in the winter months to cross train for dirt biking. And I noticed like afterwards, it definitely lingers for a while. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually, it's very relevant aspect because as our neurochemistry is involved in the process, there's some of it remains after, and it colors our perception of the world afterwards, depending on how big the experience was and depending for how long. But from everybody that I talked to, I heard the same thing, is that it makes them feel better, it makes them happier.
Yeah.
As a result, their connection with others improve and their productivity improve. So
Yeah.
there is definitely a positive effect. However, there's also a dark side of being in flow because sometimes you can get burnout. And I wonder if you ever experience being in flow too much, that after it, you're just completely exhausted and you have no space or energy left for anything else.
Yes, often. That happens often, and it's hard. Like I actually took a big break um, between October and November, I from dirt biking, because I found like I was getting burnt out of, just even riding. And um, where our trails are, people were hunting, and I was nervous. Like they actually had not caught somebody, but someone had actually shot something close to where our trails are, where they were not supposed to. So we didn't ride for a while up there. But yeah, I definitely experienced burnout, and it actually happened in October, just until about the snow. Until the snow came, I didn't really even feel like riding for a while, and I thought, I actually thought, "Is there something wrong with me? Did it," and I think it's just because, like, we do ride often, and sometimes you just need to take a break, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the 100%. We do need the recovery. The
Yeah.
recovery happens every time you go to the gym. And when we use our brain, it's almost like a workout for the brain. So it also needs a recovery. And I wonder if you have found any protocols or any systems that help you recover in those times, especially since you have a experience with anxiety. Does that anything specific helps? Maybe cold therapy, hot therapy, anything like that? Tai chi, yoga?
So, besides biking, it helps my anxiety. Meditation, I started that, when my anxiety got really bad after my mom passed, March of 2020. There's a local, meditation group, which I was talking about, through our, town, and I've started doing that with a bunch of ladies, and that helps so much. Meditation, breathing exercises. I was doing yoga too for a while. I'm not one to, like, to sit still. So I love your what you were talking about, dancing and stuff instead of, sitting still with meditation. What else? Biking, mountain biking, that was, like, a huge thing. Just go for a ride and come back, and it was definitely my therapy, and, talking to a therapist, I always suggest that as
Yeah,
well.
absolutely. I agree. And yes, I did say that moving meditation works for me personally a lot better. Although I have been practicing sitting meditation as well, and it has been working as well, but it's not as easy. That is why I'm gravitate towards biking in general, because it's
Yeah,
movement, and when the movement happens, you get instant feedback, and it's easier to not pay attention to the thoughts at that moment because you're paying attention to the body and what it does. So it's like replacing one input with another. Whenever, if you are sitting, you actually have to actively practice letting go of the thoughts that are floating in your mind and floating out
yes.
in that regard. And and the question that I always ask following by that aspect of flow is if you see any creative aspects in the writing or the after effect or being in the flow. What does creativity means to you?
Oh goodness, lots. I'm a very, very creative person. I'm just not sure towards, like, the flow aspect. Um, could you give me some examples?
Well, so the question is really, how do you perceive creativity in general? Like, let's start with
Okay.
that. What is your perception of creativity?
Oh gosh, lots. When it comes to even just, um, to what I call them silly little videos that I do on Instagram, to me, I love doing. I used to make movies when I was a child, and goofy little videos, especially at Christmas time or Halloween, like that. To me, um, I want to show people that, like, riding dirt bikes doesn't have to be serious. Like, you can still have fun. Creativity, what I do, I'm a seamstress. I sew. I make all kinds of things. I make my own graphics on my dirt bike and my snow machine, um, and others too. So I'm a really very creative person for sure, and I make, like, most of my Christmas decor. So everything, like, to me, is what I do is definitely creative for sure.
I love that. I love the expression because I also saw clothes and design. Haven't done it in
Oh
a while, but
wow.
that's been my one of my hobbies type of skills. So I totally understand. It's that desire to create. For me, creativity is the desire to create something
Yeah.
when there is nothing.
Yeah.
Bring something forward that has never existed. And in a
Exactly.
way, it's difficult because it's almost like I'm trying to reinvent the wheel when it's twice as hard. Why would you want to reinvent the wheel when it's already existing? But for
Yeah.
me, the whole fun of it becomes, how can I create something that never existed, even if I have to reinvent something? And
Exactly.
that's where the joy comes in. And I love your mention of having fun, because that is actually so rare. I think we don't
Yeah.
have enough fun in our life. We take things too seriously, and it takes an extraneous force for us to look and think this is all kind of a game. If you
Yeah.
treat it too seriously, you're still gonna die at the end. So you gotta treat it with some lightness. You gotta
Yeah.
bring some lightness into it. And for me, creativity allows me to bring that lightness in. So, and even this podcast is my way of being creating something that never existed before, looking at those ideas and dissecting them. So I love that approach. And so that is creativity with the manipulating things with your hands, the
Yeah.
graphics, the materials. But when you are riding on a bike, how does creativity show up there?
Oh gosh, I'm not too sure. Sorry, Pauline. I'm
It's
not
hard.
honestly. Yeah, it is hard
It's
to
a
think
hard
about
question.
how the creativity. Oh my goodness. I'm not too sure. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I don't
It's
think anybody has,
definitely,
yeah.
it's a very abstract question,
Y-
and a lot of people have challenge with that. So when I look at it, for example, for me, creativity when writing is how much movement am I able to sustain when
Yes.
the handlebars are moving, when the how much input can I give into the gas? How much force can I take the hill with? Because
Okay.
that's all variables. And
Yes.
for me, creativity is composed of those variables. So there's different components constantly in play: the gas, the brake, the movement of the tires, the traction.
Yeah.
And it's hard to explain in words because it all happens simultaneously. And
Yes.
then the kind of analyzing it back, it's like, well, how do you take that turn or that fork in the road, or what do you do with that boulder in your way? How are
Yes.
you going to use the same path that's already been beaten by previous tires, or are you going to take a new path because you think that you can do it, or because you want to experience a new level of challenge? So
Yes.
that's kind of how I perceive the creativity in writing when I'm writing.
I think I need more creativity so then maybe I don't fall as much as I do. I fall often, a lot. So yeah, I completely understand when you say about taking a new path. And now that you say that, I have learned this year, instead of following where my husband goes and trying to take not the easy way out, but take the path that he goes, go a different way. Try something new and do a different route. If he goes around the log, I try and go over, or if he goes over, I go around for sure. I totally
Yeah,
understand that. Yeah.
I hear you. And I found for myself, I was falling more when I was hesitating more. And
Yeah.
that was kind of at the beginning when I was just trying to get a hold, because I have never rode a dirt bike before this summer. And
Yeah.
then I tried, and at the beginning, I was like, whoa, can I really do that? The I had to trust the machine, but I didn't know to which extent I could trust it. And at the beginning, there was less trust. Therefore, there was more hesitation and more falling down because of
Yeah.
that. But the moment I really kind of merged and believed that the bike can do that,
Yeah.
that's when things kind of smoothed out. And that brings me back to the concept of challenge and skill ratio that is very prominent in flow state, because it's all perceptual. Depending on how much we perceive our skill to be in relationship to the challenge at hand, will mean if we are overly excited or overly anxious about that, or we're too bored. And so when we are too anxious, that's when the falls usually happen.
Yeah.
So, and in that sense, when I look at it, the creativity then comes in. Well, how can I creatively reframe and rethink the challenge so that it can seem less and more doable, which would then lower the challenge, increase the skill, and level out kind of the ability to go forward?
Yeah. Yeah. I I have to tell myself before I do something scary, it's okay. If you fall, you're gonna be okay. And I actually did a really hard hill recently, and I stopped and I did some deep breathing, and I said, "You can do this. You got this." And I got up the hill. I was really surprised. I got up the hill, but yeah, I you can tell when you're definitely have more anxiety, like that's when more of the falls happen. Because I can think back to every time, especially a hard fall is when, I'm nervous about something. So I definitely something that I'm going to have to work on from now on for sure.
Yeah, speaking about the hills, there were a couple of hills that I took that were really large. And at the beginning, the very first times I was riding, I had no idea how to take hills. Like I've
Yes.
never done it. And it was petrifying. I mean, the hill wasn't even that big, it was kind of small. And I was like, oh my goodness, how am I going to do this? So the
Yeah.
first couple of times I almost wiped out. And I would always stop too short of of a top. So
Yeah.
then I would have to apply more gas, and that would just topple the bike over. I was like, oh, why can't I get this? Because I didn't know how
Yeah.
far. I couldn't see beyond the hill. And when you can't see, well, you don't know. Is it just going to be a deep drop right away? Or is it going to be a valley? Like, how's it going to go? And
Yeah.
so I would stop too soon and I would get stuck, and then the bike would just fall over. But then it kind of clicked, and I was able to carry on more gas into the hill,
Yeah.
carry more gas to the top, so that I wouldn't stall too soon before it, but I would just be just at the top of it and then be able to modulate. So there was a very much learning experience. But I remember clearly going up to the hill and looking up at it, and it's like, well, there's no going back. What are you going to
Yeah.
turn around and go back? There is no nothing to go back to. So you just have to put the pedal to
Yeah.
the metal, like turn the throttle on and
Yeah.
go, and just make it as you go. And that's how I see life as well. When you're looking up at the hill, you're gonna lean into it. When you see
Yeah.
in the challenge or difficulty, what, you're gonna go back and cancel everything and change your
No.
plans? So no, there's no way. So you just have to go forward with more speed and more momentum, so that you don't stall at the top. And
That,
most likely, more often than not, it carries you through and gets you out of that bind. So that's my experience with heels.
that's amazing. No, it's true. Like same with life. You just have to, give it your best. And I find the hill I recently did had trees. Like it was a single track hill. It wasn't just like a straight up like sand hill. I love sand now, soft sand and sand hills. I just, hold the clutch in, pin it, and let her rip and go. Those are the best ones. But it's mostly coming downhill. That's the hardest for me. I find the downhill and falling over. You probably saw some of my videos just falling, falling down and just rolling down the hill. I'm like, oh, I'll get up and try it again. So
Yeah, and I also see I always saw racing as a metaphor for life.
yeah,
First, I used to spend a lot of time at the road tracks. So watching the cars race, and it's all about how you take the turn. How do you
yep,
negotiate that aspect when you're passing somebody, or somebody passes you? It's all a metaphor for life, because the challenges will always be there, and we're always kind of running in circles trying to get the better lap time. And there are always hard turns, and there always somebody passing you, and you always fail, and sometimes you drive your car into the wall and you have to start from scratch. So there's always been this aspect of racing being the example of what to do in life. Either you just put it down and really go forward, or you sit back and just run at the back of the field. And
yep,
then if you fail, then you just take an extreme amount of pain and suffering because of that, or you just get up, fix your car, and go again. That's been the clearest kind of lesson from that, of what to do in racing and then what to do in life. And then it translates into the bikes as well. Every motorsport vehicle is kind of the same.
exactly. That's what I've been doing. I've found since 2020, just um, quitting my full time, job and doing creative stuff and more time on the bike. And as my mom would say, following my passion and following my dreams. And I don't want to give up doing what I'm doing. I'm having so much fun. I'm learning. I'm meeting amazing people like you and everybody else. And it's, I don't know how to explain it. It's just amazing. Like the community and just, the support and, starting to learning to ride at not an older age, but I mean, I'm not that young. Most people learn to ride when they're like, 5, 6, 7, and at 30 years old. And I, even if people say, oh, you can't do that or you can't, I'm still going to keep trying because I love to ride and I want to inspire. At first I wanted to inspire just women, but now I just wanted to inspire anybody at no matter what, like, at any age you can do it. You might
Yeah,
not be the best. Like I'm just a beginner rider, but I fall a lot, but I still want to inspire people like just to, keep on going.
exactly. I hear you exactly. And because I also just quit the job, because for multiple reasons. One of them, which there's so much creativity in me that needs to come out, and the job just would not leave me any space for that. And I
Yeah.
keep thinking about the quote, just do what you love, because your
Yeah.
job description will be posted sooner than your obituary.
Yeah.
Like, really think about that.
Yeah.
We have one life, it's pretty short. So you got to do what is aligned to be done for you. And there's got to be some contribution. Just like you think is saying about inspiring people. I want to inspire as well with the art that I make, with the anything that I create, because there is value in expressing ourselves. There's
Yeah.
value in providing something out of ourselves instead of just running in circles and doing the same thing. There is great value in being our authentic self. And it just follows that. And like you talking about age, I love to dance. And the age has always been the thing that is kind of limiting belief. Oh, well, you're too old to dance. You can't dance anymore. It's like,
Yeah.
and I'm every day I live, I kind of try to break that pattern in myself, because dance is very important for me. And I want to keep doing it as much as I can, constantly, all the time, as much as I'm able to, as
Yeah.
long as I have the body. I want to
Yep.
express myself in that way. So it's like being on a bike is sort of like a dancing, and then
Hmm.
dance itself in a way is similar. And so, talking about this motorsports and inspiring and following our passion, what would be your message to the people who might be either stuck in their routines or thinking that they are too old to do something? Like, how would they look at the shifting that mindset?
Oh gosh. That, how would you say? It's never, I always tell people it's never too late, no matter what you want to do. If you, I seen a reel too, it said like at 30, 40, 50, 60, doesn't matter what age, it's never too late, no matter what you want to do. If you want to, travel the world, if you want to ride dirt bikes, if you want to, be an influencer on Instagram or whatever, it's never too late. Um, I got a lot of flack for leaving my job, not from family, but from other people. And they're like, well, you're not going to make that much money doing crafts and, stuff. And I'm like, that doesn't matter. To me, I want to be creative. I was a dog groomer. And even though I was doing creative grooming, I dyed their tails and stuff. And I love dogs. Dogs are my whole world, but I wanted to do something different and creative. And whatever allowed me more to ride my bike and possibly, I don't say influence, but like inspire people to ride dirt bikes. Um, but yeah, I would definitely tell them it's never too late. Even if you think you're, too old, don't don't ever don't ever stop, for sure.
Yes, exactly. And I think that belief that something is too late comes from our perception of time and our age. Because
Yeah.
if you break it down into the categories of life, like spring, summer, fall, winter, whatever, if you take it by 20-year chunks of period, then you have 0 to 20 would be your spring, 20 to 40 would be your summer, and then 40 after, that's just it. It's like fall and then fall into the winter.
Yeah.
So that perception doesn't leave very much opportunity for expansion. It's very narrow, and it's
Yeah.
probably based on the past world where life expectancy was shorter
Yeah.
and people lived less. But now that our life expectancy is a lot greater, the world is a bit more stable for now.
Yeah.
If we change the perception from 20 to 25, then you have 0 to 25 is your spring, 25 to 50, that is summer.
Yeah.
And that falls right into the midlife crisis type of area. So you have summertime until 50 years of age. That's like when some people get grandchildren. So
Yeah.
that's plenty of time. And then from 50 to 60, 75, that's the fall. So that's a huge another addition of chunk of time that can be utilized. And when you reframe that, when I think about it, it gives so much more freedom.
Yes.
And yes, the possibilities open up all of a sudden. And
Yeah.
what is important for me to mention to myself and to others is that yes, you can do and be anything you'd like, but it will require effort. It will
A
require
lot.
some commitment, and it will require dedication, and will require focus. So you better pick something that you're really, really passionate about, because you're going to need to dedicate yourself either to something that you don't care about or to
Yes.
something that you really, really love. So choose wisely what it is that you're going to give your energy to.
Yes. Another thing I would tell him is the hardest thing that I am trying to overcome is not care what other people think. Do what you love and not care, because it's your life, and if it makes you happy, then that's all that matters, for sure.
Absolutely. And I just saw a quote recently somewhere on Instagram that the mental health is more important than your job. Your
Yes.
mental health is more important even than the people in your family, because if you don't take care of what makes you happy, what makes you whole and solid, then everything else falls apart. Then you're
Yep.
useless to your family, you're useless to your work, to your job, to the world. So it's the courage to recognize what it is that our soul, our body needs in order to function properly. And for some people, it could be as weird as riding a bike in the winter all the time. If that keeps you
Yeah.
whole and sane and happy and completely in the self, then that is the activity worth doing, because then everything else benefits from that.
Yeah.
And that is the hardest thing to learn for people, I think, when not caring about what others think, because sometimes their activities could be strange, they could be
Hmm.
unusual, and that still is valuable, it still is important. And that relates to my discussion of flow state, because flow depends on the activities that are so innately ours, so
Yeah.
innately connected and aligned with ourselves. If we do them, then we experience flow state, then we experience higher productivity, better relationships, and all of that falls out. But the courage to do those activities that is required, that
Yeah.
is a whole another conversation. So it's important to recognize that mental health, and that is one of the reasons why I quit the job. I needed to get back into my mental health, because spreading yourselves out and doing things that other people want you to do is the sure way to burn out, and a
Yeah.
sure way to more anxiety and more stress. And nothing good comes out of stress.
Yeah.
Stress is survival, and we can't benefit the world when we're in survival state.
Yeah.
So
Like you said, the hardest thing is the courage to try those things. Put yourself out there on social media. Oh my goodness. And do things that you're not, that you're not good at, but you might not be good at first, and fall and fail and let the whole world see that. That's the
yeah.
hardest part. But
Yeah,
yeah.
it's the ability to start small and not feel
Yes.
bad about it. That is the critical, because we always have to start small somewhere. In whatever
Yes.
skill or area we're trying to do, there will be learning curve, there will be fails, there will be embarrassing creations that
Yeah.
probably shouldn't come out, but they have to come out, because without horrible, embarrassing type of things at the beginning, they cannot be a greatness at the end.
Yes.
So that is critical. And not everybody needs to be on social media. If you want to be,
No.
then by all
Yep.
means. If you
Yep.
don't, if you want to do something else, then that's your kind of flow activity, and that needs to be individual for every person. And
Absolutely.
my point is kind of why the reason that I am in is, I believe that what I'm expressing needs to be heard.
Hmm.
The ideas that I'm uncovering, I want to share them. And it brings me joy to share them, because I'm expressing. It's almost like expressing my truth is more important than the truth itself.
Yeah.
And that
Absolutely.
brings me joy, and creating these podcasts brings me joy. So we have to do more things that bring us joy, period. That's it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so this is very large topic. I don't think I want to go further more on it at this time. But if there was where people can find you, and what are your projects right now of importance or interest?
Projects. I'm just trying to think. I don't really have any projects on the go, as for work, but mostly what I'm excited about is winter. We're getting our bikes ready for ice riding and fat biking. Getting our bikes studded and ready to go, and that's a big job. That's a big job to get them ready, and yeah, jetting our bikes and oh yes, we're building a trail groomer too. I forgot about that for our
Nice.
fat bike. So yeah, we got lots on the go for sure.
That's exciting. And so where can people find more about you?
They can find me on Instagram at Jess Rainville, TikTok at Jess Rainville, and Facebook at Jess Rainville, and YouTube actually. I want to start my YouTube more next year. My YouTube channel at Jess Rainville too.
Nice. I will put those links in the description for anybody who's interested. But this was very, very interesting discussion about motorsports and riding and the effects of motorsports on our health and how important it is, and creativity and all those things. So thank you so much, Jessica, for being part of this. I hope listeners got a lot of value out of it, and we'll see you next time.